Deal that shocked the sports world. The PGA Tour is merging with Saudi Arabia-backed rival LIV Golf. The tie-up may resolve the league fight between the two organizations, but it's also raising a lot of questions about the future of golf. Joining us right now to talk about that deal, George Pine. He's the CEO and founder of Bruin Capital, and former SEC chairman Jay Clayton. He's the non-executive chair of Apollo, an American Express board member and senior policy advisor for Sullivan and Cromwell, and a CNBC contributor. Good morning to both of you. George, I'm so curious. You and I have talked about the idea of sports washing and all sorts of things over the years. There's been a massive fight that we've watched here. Is this ultimately a good thing or a bad thing if we have this conversation 10 years from now about the game of golf, the PGA, and everything else?
It's probably an overall good thing. I think for the PGA Tour, they're going to get the capital to consolidate golf on a global basis. Your viewers may not realize that golf is controlled by these regional organizations. It takes will and it takes risk capital to consolidate it. Now the tour has that, capability. What the Saudis gets, PIF, is they're going to get a good investment. They're going to get business for their region, and they're going to have a seat at the global game of golf for the decades to come.
Jay, is there any argument to be made that there's a regulatory issue here around this? DOJ has been investigating the PGA around antitrust. I don't know if this makes it easier to get past that. In some ways, it makes it harder because they're getting together, no?
Well, Andrew, you're right to ask. George covers the commercial. Let me deal with the litigation and regulatory aspects of this. Here we had a couple of parties who were, engaged in sort of bitter litigation, again with a regulatory overlay. We've heard that the DOJ is investigating, heard that others may be investigating, and what happened yesterday from that perspective. I'll let George deal with the commercial. What happened from that perspective is going to take a new tact in how to deal with that. Sometimes parties have to litigate to realize that a commercial arrangement is better. I think that they've taken that issue off the table from the bilateral litigation. And then you raise the right question. What does this mean from a regulatory point of view? I think if you look closely at the press release, what they're saying is we've agreed in broad terms. There's a lot still to be worked out. And as that is worked out, there'll be both a regulatory view of it and a commercial view of it, and dealing with whether or not the issues around competition that have been raised are addressed by this to the satisfaction of the regulators. I think the regulators will look at this, Andrew, and I expect that both sides are very well advised on how to deal with those regulatory issues.
George, do you look at this and say, man, this is just a dress rehearsal for a much bigger kind of deal, which is to say, could you see Saudi or another country backing a rival league for the NBA, MLB, the NFL? I mean, go down the list, and you can see how they forced the PGA into a corner.
Well, I think, Andrew, it's a watershed moment for sports as an asset class, right? And you heard yesterday from the chair of the PIF that they're going to invest billions, and they've changed the game. So whether it's the Euro League or a hockey league in Europe or any sport, outside capital is a factor. And it's a factor today in a way that it's never been before. That's for sure.
Jay, though, how do you think about that? I mean, in the context of, and I'm thinking about Major League Baseball, NBA, NFL. We've afforded. First of all, they're all for nonprofits, like the PGA effectively was. Right now, I guess we're not talking about a full control deal, but we could be in the future. Is there an argument that this is important sort of soft power, that there's a national strategic asset or interest here?
Andrew, it's emblematic of a number of things that we've discussed on this program. The issue here is golf is clearly a global game. People want a global field. Sponsors, they want a global set of eyeballs on this. And yet, as George indicated, both in golf's governing body and on our regulatory relationships, it's very regional. It's very jurisdictional. One of the things we're going to have to learn in sports that we're learning in markets and the like is how to deal with a global product with regional regulation.
George, how do you think sponsors are going to react to this? I know that, we've also talked about human rights abuses and things in Saudi. I don't know how much you think that plays in all of this. If you look at the sponsor list, by the way, for the PGA, USA Today is on that list, for example. They're a journalistic organization, of course, and many journalistic organizations have been troubled, as I think we all were, by the murder of Khashoggi. By the way, Comcast Business, our parent company, is involved in a marketing partnership with the PGA. I just wonder how you think long-term advertisers, sponsors, the American public will react to this one way or the other.
I think the jury's out on that. I think Saudi Arabia brings a different element to the equation that, quite frankly, we haven't seen before. I mean, sports has gone to unique places, right? We've hosted the Olympics in Russia. The Olympics have been in China. So usually the sports industry has been able to make its way through this. This is different, though. Those are hosting the games. This is somebody having, an equity seat at the table. I mean, the PIF chairman is going to be the chairman of this new organization. So I think time will tell. And it will also be, do they deliver on the purpose? Do they really build a game of golf? Do they create things that haven't been created again and serve needs and fans and people in a way that hasn't been before? I think time we'll have to see how that all shakes out.